God puts us on a mission, he always makes sure that everything will work out. So number one, living by faith comes with protection. It's crazy that Elijah can't be found. He just travels to here and there and nobody really knows where he is. And we think it's crazy, but it's not really. When we walk with God and he sends us on a journey, a mission that he puts us on, he will be with us and he will protect us. We need to remember what he promises in Deuteronomy 31. Moses is passing the baton of leadership to Joshua, and Moses calls for Joshua, and all the people of Israel watched as he gave his speech. And listen to what he says to Joshua. Be strong and courageous, for you will lead these people into the land that the Lord swore to their ancestors that he would give them. You are the one who will divide it among them in the grants of land. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord will personally go ahead of you, and he will be with you, and he will neither fail you nor abandon you. Friends, when God calls you, you can know that he's going to protect you along the way. And so many times we sit and wonder, how are we going to accomplish the mission that God puts us on, or whatever he puts on our heart? And the one confidence that we can have is once we've spent time with him and we know this is God calling me, then you can know that he's going to protect us. And number two, we talked about last week, God is setting up your story for his glory. In Mount Carmel, this amazing story in Scripture, I love it. Ahab summons all the prophets, and there they are. And Elijah stood in front of all the prophets and said, how much longer will you waver, hobbling between two opinions? Man, that's a great statement. That ought to be a sermon right there. In our culture, in our world, every pastor ought to have to answer this question. How long will you hobble between two opinions, between truth and culture, between right and wrong? If it's the Lord, follow him. But if Baal is God, then follow him. And the people were completely silent. Then Elijah said to them, I'm the only prophet of the Lord who's left, but Baal has 400 prophets. Now bring 2 bulls. The prophet of Baal may choose whichever one they want, cut it into pieces and lay it on the wood on their altar, but without setting fire to it. I'll prepare the other bull, lay it on the wood on the altar, but not set fire to it. Then you call on the name of your God, I love this, little g, and I will call on the name of the Lord, capital L. The God, little g, who answers by setting fire to the wood is the true God, capital G, and all the people agreed. Isn't that awesome? Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, you go first, for there's many of you. Choose one of the bulls, prepare it, call on the name of your God, but do not set fire to the wood. So they prepared one of the bulls, placed it on the altar. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning until noon, shouting, O Baal, answer us. But there was no reply of any kind. Then they danced, hobbling around the altar that they had made. About noontime, Elijah began mocking them. From morning till noontime. So 3 or 4 hours, right? Isn't this awesome? And they're all going crazy, calling on Baal, and they're dancing. And we know here in a minute they're going to cut themselves till their blood flows, begging Baal to answer them. And Elijah, I don't know what he was doing for those 3 or 4 hours, but at this point he's had enough. He says, you must have to shout a little louder. For surely he's a God. Here's my favorite. Perhaps he's daydreaming or is relieving himself. Perhaps he's daydreaming, or maybe he's off to go to the restroom. Isn't that awesome? Or maybe he's away on a trip or is asleep and needs to be wakened. This is so awesome. So they shouted louder. And following their normal customs, they cut themselves. They raved all afternoon until the time of the evening sacrifice, but there was no sound, no reply, no response. Then Elijah called to the people, "Come over here." They all crowded around him as he repaired the altar of the Lord that had been torn down. He took the 12 stones, one to represent each of the tribes of Israel, and he used the stones to rebuild the altar in the name of the Lord. This is really important, my friend. If you want God's power, you got to rebuild your altars. You got to rebuild your places of worship that have been torn down. Sacrifice to him alone. Then he dug a trench around the altar large enough to hold about 3 gallons. He piled wood on the altar, cut the bull into pieces, laid pieces on the wood. Then he said, "Fill 4 jars with water and pour the water over the offering and the wood." After they had done this, he said, "Do the same thing again." And when they were finished, he said, "Now do it a 3rd time." So they did as he said, and the water ran over the altar and even filled the trench. Do you remember what I asked you to circle at the beginning of chapter 18? Drought. The prophet's not very smart here. Elijah says, "Okay, this is what I want you to do. In the middle of a drought, I want you to fill up the water and I want you to pour it over the sacrifice." And they do that. And you know that people are a little bit irritated that we're in a drought and he's filling up water jugs and pouring. And then he says, "Do it again." And they go do it again. And then he says, "Do it again," until the water pours over the sacrifice or the bull so much that it now fills the trench that is dug around the altar. Now, the scripture doesn't tell us this, but I believe in that moment there's a whole bunch of angry people. Look, this is a nice little game you're playing in a little public thing, but you've wasted jugs and jugs of water. Are you crazy? And then after this, I love when then Elijah steps up to the plate